AITAH for breaking up with my girlfriend after learning about her credit card debt. I 29M recently broke up with my girlfriend Lisa 28F after dating for a year. My friends think I am a huge asshole to break up with someone over money, but I feel that I did the right thing. One of my friends suggested me to post here so that I can see I am making the biggest mistake of my life. For context, I have a comfortable job now and financially in a great place. I grew up poor and had to scrap through most of my college on scholarships. Luckily, I found good mentors in college and was able to finish my PhD in a very lucrative field. I know what it's like to have nothing and am very frugal with my resources. I met Lisa a year ago on a dating app. Lisa is beautiful, smart, and very charming. Our relationship has been great so far, and we have never had any real fights or differences. She also has great taste, which I lack, and helped me with my wardrobe and making my apartment so homely. Her lease was supposed to be up in a few months, and I asked her to move in with me. She was incredibly happy and agreed to it. However, we decided to discuss finances and other important things before we take the next step. 2 weeks ago, we sat down and I made an Excel sheet to decide how we are planning to pay for stuff. I knew I make significantly more than her, and I offered we pay proportionally, which she happily agreed to. For that purpose, I asked her how much she makes, and it was lower than I would have anticipated based on her lifestyle. I asked her how she affords all the designer bags and going to fancy vacations on that salary. She looked embarrassed and told me that she has around 20K credit card debt. I knew about her student loans, but that did not bother me. However, I realized she spends way more than she can afford and had no real answers on how she plans to pay back the credit card's balance. She told me that moving in together would help towards paying off the debt, as her monthly living expenses will go down significantly and she can pay that towards the debt. She told me she would be debt-free within a year if we moved in. However, she also told me she could not be on the lease as she has a poor credit history, all that led me to rethink our whole relationship. I was looking forward to a long-term relationship and also marrying her one day. However, based on what I have seen so far, she is very irresponsible with money. I have trauma from childhood where my father would spend money on gambling and on fancy items to impress his friends that we could not afford, and that meant we barely were scraping by. My mother kept the house together and made sure we had food on the table. I cannot be with a person who is so irresponsible with money and suffers like my mother did. I communicated that to Lisa, and she was upset with me. She told me that she is not asking for handouts and she will take care of her debt. She told me that she made some dumb decisions years ago and is just caught in a bad loop with credit cards. She also said that she is willing to learn from me as her parents never taught her about how to handle money. She also pointed out things I learned from her that I lacked. She asked me to give her time, but I just don't think I can play the same role as my mother. We talked about it for a while, and I told her we cannot move in together until she takes care of the debt. She said she cannot afford to live on her own and take care of it. Finally, we broke up over that. She still wants to get back together, but I told her I need time to think. My friends love Lisa and feel that she is a perfect partner for me. They think she has made me into a better person, and I am stupid to throw away a perfectly good relationship over something that can be fixed. I just don't think I trust her to change, and I know that eventually I will end up supporting her lifestyle if we get married, since money would not be an issue at that point for her. Am I the asshole to break up over this? And am I throwing away a perfectly good relationship over money? First comment, I asked her how she affords all the designer bags and going to fancy vacations on that salary. She looked embarrassed and told me that she has around 20K credit card debt. I knew about her student loans, but that did not bother me. However, I realized she spends way more than she can afford and had no real answers on how she plans to pay back the credit card's balance. She told me that moving in together would help towards paying off the debt, as her monthly living expenses will go down significantly and she can pay that towards the debt. She told me she would be debt-free within a year if we moved in. Here's the issue with her plan. It does not involve her forming a budget where she has a surplus. It does not involve her making sacrifices for her financial future. I would want to see the following from her. 1. A budget where she's in surplus. 2. Tracking her expenses and spending over the next 3 months to see whether she can actually stick to a budget where she is in surplus and paying down her bills. If you need to walk her through this, then help her do so. But do not move in with her to save money before she has developed the skills to manage her income by herself. You are quite right that after you marry her, problems will go away and you'll be responsible for her debts, and she'll feel enabled to spend and make more debt because you will make the problems go away. This is a recipe for hardship in your marriage. I would do 1 and 2 and go from there. If she balks at trying this because it's harder than just moving in, just walk away. NTA, Your concerns are reasonable. Neither of us brought debt into our marriage, but due to some unforeseen circumstances, we ended up about $50,000 in debt. It took me a little over 2 years to pay that off. Second comment, exactly. For me, my ex and I's situation was very similar to all the responses here. Our situation was different in that my ex quit his job immediately after we got married less than 2 months and decided he should start his own business. After 6 months of that, COVID hit, and then his aspirations were to be a stay-at-home husband until I popped out a kid. And when the stress of being unable to pay bills and unable to get pregnant, yes, I know I was dumb to want to comply with this, but his frustrations that I was living up to his expectations led to ongoing arguments, which is what finally woke me up to leaving. To those of you in this situation, please just remember financial abuse works this way too. It's not just a controlling spouse refusing to let you have access to a bank account. When someone's deliberately going out of their way to avoid helping their soul and causing extreme financial distress, for me, $80,000, it's not okay to just stay because of love. No adult should be demanding your income without acknowledging the strain it puts on their spouse's financial abuse too. It's less common, but with the growing number of narcissists today, it does happen. When my ex and first got together in HS, he had ambitions, and something changed over time to where I saw his true colors. Although I know he loved me, and I loved him as well, the resentment that built up was too much to bear for me, and I couldn't think to put my future kids through that type of dynamic. I stayed for 3 years trying to get him to see my side, but in the end, I was only ever concerned about money, his words, not mine, and nothing was going to change that. Third comment, not to mention she seems to think living expenses are the problem, but mention about how she can afford luxury items. If she's in debt and has a low income, why is she even buying designer bags at all? If you're in this situation, you should probably actually be selling these to pay some debt off. Not to mention going on fancy vacations. It shows not only how irresponsible and immature she is financially, but also that her priorities are very wrong. If your living expenses are high and you have debt, you cannot afford to buy things you don't need, even more so if those are unnecessary expensive items. She seems to think her financial trouble is the living expenses when it's her spending habits. Just shows that even if she wants to change, her priorities are very wrong and do not align with Op's priorities and expectations of how his finances should be. She's prioritizing futile things over necessary things, and that's just a recipe for disaster. Edit NTA. If you really love her and see a future with her, you should give her a chance if you want, but do not move in together if she cannot control her spending and show she's financially responsible. It will just set the precedent that eventually something will happen to save her from her problems when she should be doing that herself. Fourth comment, NTA. I was married to a man who earned a great living way above mine, but constantly spent way above what we could afford. He spent his life hiding the things he purchased and all his spending. I would only discover it when he eventually came back to tell we were in trouble again and had to get another loan or debt management plan to pay it back. This was repeatedly after 12 years on credit repayment plans from the first time. He lived large whilst my part-time wage fed and clothed our kids and us. Paid for anything the house needed, even when washing machines broke. He never paid for furniture or needs like that. As well as being the one to scrimp and save to pay for even 3-day cheap caravan holidays for our kids every number of years. Never mind birthdays and Christmases. Of course, I could only work part-time as I had to work around his hours, as he insisted we couldn't afford childcare otherwise. I even had to change my profession and retrain to be able to work round his hours. He just never cared, as he was a selfish asshole that had no impulse control. I had given him an ultimatum a year before when he did it again, but when we lost him, surprise, I discovered loads of debt and that he made way higher than he let on. Yet I had to live scrimping every penny and stressing our entire lives together. Oh, of course, his life insurance was ate up to repay his debts by law, as it's classed as his estate and debts come off first. I even had to take a temporary loan to pay for his funeral, when with our combined income we should have been set for life. Life insurance should have also made that so. Yet it was even a fight to save and keep my children's in my home. I honestly have no idea where it all was going over the years. The twist in life is that I became disabled and can no longer work, so now I'm still having to scrimp to support my kids and myself on benefits when it doesn't give enough to survive. It's hard to know he did this to us. Yes, he didn't expect me to become disabled, no one does. He thought his debts would disappear if he passed and that it wouldn't be taken from his estate. Yet the truth is, I could never save for our future, as I was barely keeping us alive, whilst he spent tens of thousands every month on who knows what. It truly is not worth it. I should have walked long ago, but he was very manipulative and covert in all he did. When on debt plans, he was forced to behave for 12 years, as he couldn't take out loans or credit cards in that time. So it made me think things had changed, which later enabled him to hide him doing it again, after the debt plans ended. It never mattered his wages would increase constantly, he'd just up his spending.